Marcus Thompson's alarm clock never worked properly, but he didn't need it anymore. His body had learned to wake up at 4:30 a.m. every single day. The small apartment in downtown Chicago was cold, and the holes in his shoes had grown bigger over the winter months. He looked down at his bare feet and sighed. The last pair of shoes had fallen apart 3 weeks ago, and there was no money for new ones. Walking through the streets of downtown Chicago, Marcus felt the cold concrete against his feet. People stared, some laughed, others just looked away. Quickly, he had become used to the stares, but they still hurt deep inside his heart. The security guards at the Thompson and Associates building knew him well. He had been working as their night janitor for almost 2 years. "There goes Barefoot. Marcus again," whispered Jenny from the front desk to her friend. "I don't understand why they keep him around. He looks so unprofessional." Marcus heard every word but kept walking. He had learned that responding only made things worse. His job was simple: clean the offices, empty the trash, and stay invisible. Executive floors were different from the basement, where Marcus usually worked. Expensive paintings hung on the walls, thick carpets covered the floors, and everything smelled like success and money. As he cleaned the conference rooms, Marcus often found business magazines and reports left behind. Instead of throwing them away, he would read them during his breaks. Night after night, Marcus studied these materials. He learned about market analysis, business strategies, and leadership principles. The executives who worked in these offices had no idea that their janitor was absorbing every piece of knowledge they carelessly left behind. Marcus had always been smart, but circumstances had never given him a proper chance to show it. His supervisor, Robert Hayes, was particularly cruel. "Marcus, you missed a spot again," he would say loudly, making sure other employees could hear. "Maybe if you spent less time dreaming and more time working, you'd actually be good at something." The other workers would laugh, and Marcus would quietly clean the spot again. But Marcus had a secret that nobody knew about. Every night after work, he would go to the public library and read business books until they closed. He studied accounting, management, and economics. The librarian, Mrs. Patterson, had become fond of the quiet young man who came in every night with determination in his eyes. "Knowledge is power, Marcus," she would tell him. "Don't let anyone make you feel small because of your circumstances." These words gave Marcus strength during his darkest moments. He began to dream of something bigger, something beyond the mop and bucket that had become symbols of his daily struggle. 3 months later, everything changed when Marcus overheard a conversation that would alter his life forever. He was cleaning the conference room late one evening when 2 executives, Sarah Williams and David Shunn, were discussing a major problem the company was facing. "We're losing clients to our competitors because we can't adapt to the digital market fast enough," Sarah said, rubbing her temples in frustration. "If we don't find a solution soon, we might have to lay off half the staff." David nodded grimly. "The board is giving us 6 months to turn things around, or they're bringing in outside consultants to restructure everything. We've tried everything we can think of." Marcus continued cleaning quietly, but his mind was racing. From all his reading and studying, he recognized exactly what the company needed. He had seen similar cases in the business magazines and knew several strategies that could work. But who would listen to a barefoot janitor? That night at the library, Marcus researched everything he could find about the company's situation. He created a detailed business plan, writing it by hand since he couldn't afford a computer. Mrs. Patterson noticed his intense focus and offered to help him type it up on the library's computer. "This is impressive work, Marcus," she said as she read through his analysis. "You have a real gift for understanding business dynamics. Have you ever considered that you might be meant for something greater than your current job?" Marcus had been thinking the same thing, but fear held him back. What if they laughed at him? What if they fired him for overstepping his boundaries? But then he thought about Sarah and David's worried faces, and about all the employees who might lose their jobs if the company failed. The next morning, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He wrote a simple note and slipped it under Sarah Williams' office door. "I might have a solution to your digital market problem. Marcus Thompson, night janitor." 2 days later, Sarah cornered Marcus in the hallway. "Did you leave this note?" "In my office?" she asked, holding up his handwritten message. Marcus nodded nervously, expecting to be fired on the spot. Instead, Sarah's expression softened with curiosity. "What kind of solution are you talking about, Marcus?" Marcus took a deep breath and began explaining his ideas. He talked about creating strategic partnerships with tech companies, implementing a customer feedback system, and developing a digital platform that would set them apart from competitors. Sarah listened intently, her eyes growing wider with each suggestion. "Where did you learn all this?" she asked when he finished. "I read every business magazine and report left in the conference rooms," Marcus admitted. "And I study at the library every night after work." Sarah was amazed. Here was their janitor, the man everyone overlooked and sometimes mocked, presenting ideas that were more innovative than anything their paid consultants had proposed. She made a decision that surprised even herself. "Marcus, I want you to present these ideas to our executive team next week. Would you be willing to do that?" Marcus could barely sleep for the next week. Sarah had scheduled a formal presentation for the following Friday, and Marcus knew this was his one chance to prove himself. The weight of the opportunity was both thrilling and terrifying. The first challenge was clothing. Marcus had only his janitor's uniform and one old shirt that was too small for him. Sarah, who had begun to see the potential in Marcus, quietly arranged for him to receive a professional suit through the company's charity program. When Marcus tried it on, he barely recognized himself in the mirror, but the shoes remained a problem. The charity program didn't have any in his size, and Marcus still couldn't afford to buy any. He made a difficult decision. He would attend the most important meeting of his life barefoot. At least his feet were clean, and the suit pants were long enough to partially cover them. Mrs. Patterson at the library became Marcus's informal coach. "Confidence comes from knowledge, and you have more knowledge than anyone in that room about what your company needs," she assured him. "Don't let their expensive shoes make you forget that your ideas could save their jobs." Marcus spent every free hour perfecting his presentation. He practiced in front of the library's mirror, rehearsed with Mrs. Patterson, and even presented to his own reflection in his apartment window. He knew that his ideas were solid, but he also knew that first impressions mattered in the business world. The night before the presentation, Marcus couldn't eat dinner. His stomach was tied in knots, and his mind kept racing between excitement and fear. What if they laughed at him? What if they thought he was being presumptuous? What if his lack of formal education showed? But then he remembered something his grandmother used to tell him before she passed away. "Marcus, baby, it's not about where you come from or what you're wearing. It's about what's in your heart and what's in your head. You've got more in both than most people ever will." He spent the morning of the presentation reviewing his notes one final time. His handwritten papers were neat and organized, thanks to countless hours of careful preparation. Sarah had arranged for the company's presentation equipment to be available, but Marcus had also prepared to give his talk without any technology, just in case. When he arrived at the building that morning, everything felt different. Instead of entering through the service entrance as usual, Sarah had instructed him to come through the main lobby. The security guards looked confused, seeing their night janitor in a business suit, and some of the office workers whispered among themselves. "Is that Marcus?" he heard someone ask. "What's he doing dressed up like that?" Marcus walked taller than he had in years. The suit gave him confidence, but more importantly, the knowledge he carried gave him purpose. He thought about all those Nights studying, all those business magazines he had read, all those strategies he had learned. Today, he would finally get to use them. The conference room was filled with the company's top executives, including CEO Robert Thompson, Sarah Williams, David Chun, and several department heads. Marcus had cleaned this room hundreds of times, but he had never sat at the polished mahogany table as an equal participant. As Marcus entered the room barefoot but confident, he noticed the mixture of curiosity and skepticism on the faces around the table. Robert Hayes, his supervisor, looked particularly uncomfortable and confused about why the janitor was present at an executive meeting. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah began, "I'd like you to meet Marcus Thompson. He's been with our company for 2 years, and he has some innovative ideas about how we can address our current market challenges." The room fell silent. Marcus could feel every eye in the room examining him, from his professional suit jacket down to his bare feet. CEO Robert Thompson leaned back in his chair with an expression that seemed to say, "This should be interesting." Marcus stood up and walked to the front of the room. His heart was pounding, but his voice was steady and clear. "Good morning, everyone. I know this might seem unusual, having your night janitor present business strategies to you, but I've been watching. This company struggled for months, and I believe I can help." He began his presentation with confidence that surprised everyone in the room. "Your main problem isn't that you lack good products or dedicated employees. Your problem is that you're trying to compete in a digital world using analog strategies." Marcus outlined his 3-phase plan. Phase 1 involved creating strategic partnerships with emerging technology companies that could enhance their service delivery. Phase 2 focused on implementing a real-time customer feedback system that would allow them to adapt quickly to market changes. Phase 3 was the most ambitious, developing a proprietary digital platform that would revolutionize how they interacted with clients. As Marcus spoke, he could see the expressions in the room changing. The initial skepticism was replaced by genuine interest, then by amazement. David Chun started taking notes furiously. Sarah Williams was nodding with approval. Even CEO Thompson was leaning forward with attention. The estimated cost for Phase 1 would be approximately $200,000. Marcus continued, but the projected revenue increase in the first year alone would be $2.3 million, based on market analysis of similar implementations in companies of our size. Robert Hayes, Marcus's supervisor, couldn't contain himself any longer. "This is ridiculous," he interrupted. "We're listening to business advice from a janitor who can't even afford shoes. This is a waste of everyone's time." The room went completely silent. Marcus felt the familiar sting of humiliation, but this time something was different. This time, he had something valuable to offer, and he wasn't going to let anyone's prejudice stop him. CEO Thompson spoke for the first time since the presentation began. "Robert, please let him finish. Continue, Marcus." Marcus completed his presentation with renewed confidence. When he finished, the room remained silent for several long seconds. Then CEO Thompson began asking detailed questions about implementation timelines, resource requirements, and potential risks. For the next hour, Marcus answered every question with precision and insight. He had anticipated most of their concerns and had prepared thoughtful responses. His knowledge of the company's operations, gained from 2 years of observing and listening, combined with his extensive self-education, made him uniquely qualified to understand both the problems and the solutions. "Marcus," said David Chun, "these strategies align perfectly with current market trends. How long did it take you to develop this plan?" "I've been working on it for about 3 weeks," Marcus replied, "but the foundation comes from 2 years of studying business practices and observing how this company operates." Sarah Williams smiled proudly. She had taken a risk by bringing Marcus into this meeting, and it was paying off in ways she had never imagined. "The level of detail and strategic thinking in this presentation is exceptional," she said. CEO Thompson stood up and walked around the table to where Marcus was standing. "Marcus, I have to ask you something. Why didn't you come to us with these ideas sooner?" Marcus looked down at his bare feet, then back up at the CEO. "Sir, with all due respect, would you have listened to the barefoot janitor 3 weeks ago? I had to prove that my ideas were worth your time before anyone would take me seriously." The honesty of his answer struck everyone in the room. They realized that they had been working alongside someone with exceptional abilities, and they had been too blind to see it because of their prejudices about appearance and social status. "Marcus," CEO Thompson said, "I want to offer you a position as our Director of Strategic Innovation. Your salary would be $85,000 per year to start, with performance bonuses based on the success of your initiatives. Are you interested?" Marcus felt his knees go weak. Director of Strategic Innovation? 6 hours ago, he had been a janitor making minimum wage. Now he was being offered executive position with a salary that would change his entire life. "Sir, I don't have a college degree," Marcus stammered. "Son," the CEO replied, "you just gave the most impressive business presentation I've heard in 20 years. Your education came from determination and real-world observation. That's worth more than most degrees." Robert Hayes, Marcus's former supervisor, looked stunned. The man he had bullied and belittled was now going to be earning 3 times his own salary. The irony was not lost on anyone in the room. "There's just one condition," Marcus said, surprising everyone. "I want to stay involved with the maintenance staff. They work hard and deserve respect. If I'm going to be in leadership, I want to make sure all employees are treated fairly." 6 months later, Marcus Thompson sat in his corner office on the 15th floor, wearing a custom-tailored suit and Italian leather shoes. The view from his window showed the same Chicago streets he used to walk barefoot, but everything looked different now. His strategic initiatives had exceeded all expectations. The company's revenue had increased by 180% in the first quarter after implementation. They had gained 12 major new clients and had been featured in Business Weekly as the year's most innovative turnaround story. Marcus had used his first paycheck to buy a small house for his mother, who had raised him alone after his father left when Marcus was 12. She cried when she saw the deed with her name on it. "I always knew you were destined for greatness, baby," she said, hugging him tightly. The company culture had changed dramatically as well. Marcus had implemented an employee suggestion program that encouraged ideas from all levels of staff. The maintenance team, his former colleagues, now had a direct line to management for their observations and suggestions. 3 of their ideas had already been implemented, saving the company thousands of dollars. Sarah Williams had been promoted to vice president, partly due to her wisdom in recognizing Marcus's potential when everyone else was blind to it. She often told people that the most important lesson she learned was to listen to good ideas regardless of their source. Robert Hayes had resigned 2 months after Marcus's promotion. He couldn't handle working in an environment where the man he had bullied was now his superior. Marcus held no grudges and even wrote him a positive reference letter when he asked for one. The story of the barefoot janitor who became an executive spread throughout the business community. Marcus was invited to speak at conferences and universities about innovation, perseverance, and the importance of recognizing talent in unexpected places. Mrs. Patterson from the library was Marcus's guest at the Chicago Business Awards ceremony, where he received the Young Innovator of the Year award. "You see," she whispered to him as he accepted the trophy, "I told you knowledge was power." But the most meaningful change was in Marcus himself. He walked with confidence now, knowing that his worth was not determined by his circumstances or appearance, but by his character and abilities. Every morning, he looked at his reflection and remembered the barefoot young man who had dared to dream of something better. Marcus established a scholarship fund for underprivileged students pursuing business education, and he regularly visited local schools to share his story. His message was always the same: your current situation is not your final destination. With determination, education, and courage, you can write your own success story. The barefoot janitor had become the boss, but more importantly, he had become an inspiration to anyone who had ever been underestimated or overlooked. His story proved that in America, with hard work and perseverance, anyone could rise above their circumstances and achieve greatness.